Hi and welcome to Hedgehog Hollow. Today I want to talk to you about tips of using your stamps from Waffleflower in conjunction with the frosted pumpkin stitchery. Now, as many of you will have seen, I'm a huge fan of the frosted pumpkin stitchery, and I'm delighted that they've done this collection with Waffleflower stamps. Now, I've seen lots and lots of videos on them and none of them really particularly worked for me. So I want to show you how I ended up stamping this beautiful little note card using the macarons from the Stitched Cup of Tea set. I'm going to show you how I layered them on top of each other perfectly and a couple of different tips and techniques you can use. So let's get started. I love the pumpkin stitchery. I followed her for many years, and when the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery did this range with Waffleflower, I knew I had to have them all. Now I still have one of them on back order, but I have 3 of the sets here. You may have seen Jennifer Maguire use this one. There's a stitched unicorn that we'll be using in a future video, and on this one we're going to be using the Stitched Cup of Tea. Now what I found was, having watched a few videos, none of the tutorials really worked for me particularly. So I wanted to show you how I approached these and how I got the best results. Now this is the little notelet I came up with, and you can make one of these too. This is just a stitched border die that I made sure it came off the end so that it didn't cut on my fold. This is one of their beautiful new bobbin floss dies, which I'll link up in the blog post, which you can see if you click down here. There should be a little downward arrow that you click and it'll give you a link to our blog post. So I came up with a few different ideas that I wanted to share with you. Now the first one was on die cutting. So I stamped out this panel on just a quarter piece of 8.5 by 11 Neenah white, and I couldn't decide how to die cut it. So what I always do is I always keep the acetate that comes on the back of photopolymer stamp sets. I have a whole envelope of them, and what I did was I die cut a few different die cuts to see what would fit, and I did it in that. You can see I get all the details, but particularly I get the outline, because the true outline of a die isn't necessarily what you can see through the window. And so that way I was able to work out exactly where I wanted it, and I could have a look, does it fit? Does my panel fit? No, not quite. If I put it on point, oh, it would fit. No, my plate doesn't fit unless I move it down here. So I can play about with it. I played about with labels. I also did one of the spools that seems to have got legs and walked off. But this is a really helpful way. If you cut it out the acetate, you can see exactly what you're going to get from your die. You can then layer it on, and then what you can actually do is move the die about and then stick it down in exactly the right place and just slide your acetate back out again. So that's a top tip for you, and I have lots of these. If I cut one, I tend to just put them in the case with the dies, so that's something else you can do. So I'm going to just grab the Stitched Cup of Tea for this one, and I really would recommend using a stamp press. For this, the Misty was invaluable, and you're going to need a piece of acetate. Now you can use a piece of window sheet, or you can use just the piece that comes on the back of the dies, the stamps rather. So I've got a piece of my Neenah Solar White, and I'm just going to hold it down with my magnets, and I'm going to slide my inks out the way. So all the inks I'm using are My Favourite Things Hybrid, and I've chosen a bright and a light of each one. And we're going to start with our macarons, or macaroons. Maybe someone can tell me the difference. So your first one, you don't have to worry too much because it can be anywhere. And I'm going to stamp this out with some bubble gum. So bubble gum's going to go in the middle. I'm going to use a pink lemonade just for my first one, like so. So you see it's quite light, but you will notice it by the end. And I'm going to use my stamp chamois just to clean this off. Now the next thing I'm going to do is, you have 2 options. So you can either take the acetate that comes with the stamp and turn it the appropriate way up and decide where you want it to be. You can then put your stamp over the top, so you line it up on the X's, which is actually really quite hard to do. This is how Waffleflower suggests you do them, but I found this way really difficult. So for instance, I'm going to put this one here. Then you can pick up your stamp and peel off your acetate. Your stamp will now be the right way up. And I'm going to use some Hybrid Berrylicious for a nice blue. And you can see there, that's not perfect stamping. If I bring this up to the camera, it's not really as perfect as I want it to be. So let me show you how I ended up doing mine. And it's very similar to Jennifer Maguire, but it doesn't use vellum. So first of all, we need to clean off our stamp. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to place it roughly where I think it should go, like this. And I'm going to move my paper out so I have a little bit of wiggle room. And I'm going to put down a piece of that window sheet. So we'll just put a magnet on there. And I'm going to stamp it out using cotton candy. So the cotton candy, if I bring this up, you can see is now on my acetate. What that means is I can keep my acetate in place and I can move, let's just put the magnet on our acetate, my magnets have all stuck together, and I can move my cardstock underneath to exactly where I want my stamp to be. So I can be far more precise. I'm just working out exactly where I want it. And you can be kind of as picky as you like. Then I pop some magnets back on my white, pull my acetate away, re-ink your stamp, and you can see there that my stamping is far more precise than with just using, trying to line it up on the stamp sheet. So those are my tips for using any of these cross-stitch stamps. Now this is the one I used. I will pop in the blog post the exact colours I've used here. They're still the My Favourite Things hybrids, and they come out with this lovely little stacked macaron in a plate, and it would make just a beautiful little note card shape for you. So thanks for stopping by. I hope you found these tips useful, and I'd love to see what you make with the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery collection from Waffleflower. And be sure to visit the blog post for all information that I've told you about here too. Thanks for stopping by, happy stamping, and we'll see you again soon. Bye!